Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Gerry Brown here on the Groove Don't Lie podcast. Today's guest is the world-renowned violinist, is Karen Briggs. Karen has been playing since she was 12. A lot of people know her from Yanni, but she also has played with me, but beside Diana, Stanley Clarke, Wu Tang Clan, in Vogue, and Chaka Khan. And that's only a smidgen of her history. So sit back, enjoy this first episode with Miss Karen Briggs on the Groove Don't Lie podcast. Your incredible journey so far, it's ongoing.
Yes, it is.
Chaka Khan, Diana Ross, Stanley Clarke, RZA of Wu Tang Clan, Kirk Franklin,
Yanni.
Yanni, Nasir Shama. Is that correct? How I say that?
Nasir, that's the oud player.
Nasir.
I had lunch with him when we were in Abu Dhabi recently, and he just happened to be there. It was like really a fluky thing. But Nasir Shama is an incredible person, and you know he's just a lot of things. You know, he sets up a lot of schools for students for music and to teach them the oud. And yeah, I had lunch with him. I just happened to just reach out because the first time I went to Abu Dhabi was to play with him, and so when I got there, I just said, let me just, do a stab in the dark and see if anybody from that band might be here. And his manager's like, well, as a matter of fact, Nasir is there. He was there for 3 days. So I had lunch with him one of the days that we were there. And that was just a delightful surprise. Yes.
So just to let the audience know, with Diana Ross, Karen and the band, and we were there in Abu Dhabi. It was wonderful to be in a place that was actually warm.
Yes, the weather was very good while we were there.
Yes.
And the food was amazing. I always love the food in that part of the world. It's just it just tastes so good.
It's incredible.
Yes, I there's some things there. It's like, okay, like the lentil soup that I had. I got to learn how to make that because that was it felt like a warm hug, like oatmeal, like it was amazing. It was buttery and creamy, and I was like, okay, I gotta learn how to make that.
Great. So in your in your journey, was there a realization that your path may be, and maybe this is not the word for it, but just to say it was going to be unconventional. However, so what?
Oh gosh, I wish I could say it was that easy. I struggled with a lot of thoughts and feelings about my path just because of the way it came about. Because first of all, when you're doing music, a lot of times people will tell you, you can't make a living doing this. And I had a lot of people whose opinions I really trusted at that time when I was very young to say that to me. And I just believed them at first, and the divinity of it was that I got married and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have 5 kids and I'm going to cook and keep house and take care of myself and this husband. And then things didn't work out. It all fell apart after we got to California, like beyond repair. And then it was like, okay. And my mother was terminally ill at the time. So I was really stressing. I had a lot of, a million thoughts going through my head, like, what is the future? Like, what are you going to do? And by this time, the violin had kind of been sitting on the shelf for probably a year. I just didn't even touch it. I was just, I was still listening to a lot of music, but I wasn't playing. And when that started to happen, when things started to go south, I was like, you gotta practice. So I would go and sit in with people in Los Angeles. And it was different because I came there from New York. And, New York is a whole nother game with that. It's like you go to a jam session, they may not call you till 1 o'clock in the morning, if it started at 9. And, especially if they didn't know who you were. And nobody knew who I was, even though I'd been there. That's where I was born. But I was there again. We moved to Virginia after a while when I was about 7 years old, but I went back when I got older. And so, I was kind of like playing the Apollo Theater, and I won the contest and everything, but still nobody knew who I was. So I just, kind of worked as a booking agent for a while I was there in Soho. It was at let's see, the place was called Third World Booking Agency. So we had all acts from Jamaica and the Caribbean and Africa, and I was plotting all their contracts and all that. I did that before I came to California. And so while I was there, I got a taste of that edge that New York is very well known for, that's why they say if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Yep.
And, I tolerated that. And then I got to California and the people were so different, they were just really different. It's like, I can remember times going to places where they weren't having jam sessions and I would have my fiddle in the car. And, they take a break and I try to dress, really cute, so, just to win some favor. And I would talk to these musicians and I'd really like to sit in with you guys, They're like, yeah, do you sing? No. Oh, you play an instrument? Yes. What do you play? And I would say violin. And this would be like a funk band. They're looking at me like, okay, what the hell is she gonna do with, with us? But I had the courage to go up there and plug it in, get a sound, go up there and play. I remember this happened once with a bass player named Cornelius Mims.
Yes. I know Cornelius. Yes.
Yes, he was playing at a club in downtown LA that I believe at the time was owned by Prince. And he was playing, and they were funky, and I was like, oh, I think I could fit in with them. I always had to seek out a role for my instrument outside of what was expected. And so I said that to him. And I had one of my good sister friends at the time, Marina Bambino, was with me.
Yes, Marina.
Yes, percussionist. And so she told him, she said, if she doesn't bring the house down, I'll give you my firstborn child. Of course, she was kidding, but she was just really in my corner about it. And he called me up there. I plugged in the violin. He didn't know what was going to happen. So I really appreciate him for being open to taking a chance. And so he just he played a tune by James Brown called Papa Don't Take No Mess.
Oh.
That's what he played. And I just joined right in. I caught the key and, I just started playing. And they were very impressed. That's when I met him. And Horny was like, they were looking at each other like, they just didn't see the violin in this context. So, that was a large part of the journey, is just exposing the violin in a different context. And there were some people kind of doing it already, Noel Pointer, Jean-Luc Ponty, there was Stefan Grappelli. There was a few that were known. Those three were.
Yeah, they were known, but not in that arena.
Right, not in that arena. See, that's what I grew up with. So, like in India, melisma is going to sound like the way they sing. Here, melisma is going to sound like what I grew up hearing, which was, the Nancy Wilsons, the Mahalia Jacksons, the Aretha Franklin, the Stevie Wonder, the singers that are from here. And so my melisma was more comparable to what I was hearing growing up with all of the singing. And then, of course, several instrumentalists that are well known, Miles Davis. My family was bringing all these records in the house. I have a brother and two sisters. So the eldest sister and brother were the ones that were bringing in music. They were bringing in Mandrill and Miles Davis. My father, sax player, not for as a living, but he just did it kind of more as a hobby. So I was around a lot of music, and they're bringing this music in the house, and I'm soaking it all in as I'm growing up. And I try to pick out a lot of these tunes on the violin. And once I started doing that and embellishing things that we were repeatedly playing over and over again, it turned into a signature, so to speak, that I hadn't heard on another violinist. Stuff Smith was another one, very bluesy. But I realized I didn't sound like quite like any of them really. But then, of course, to this day, I still get lots of comparisons. But I feel confident that I do have my own signature when left to my own devices as a musician. And so this is translated through so many genres and amazing musicians that I've had the opportunity to work with. I mean, all the way to this day, it's been like 50 years I've been playing violin now.
Wow. So as you speak about genres, I wanted to ask you that what you've brought in playing violin has really crossed cultures.
Yes, yes, it has.
And in crossing those cultures, the globe has embraced you. You are given a voice that very few before you have been given because you've crossed these numerous cultures.
Mm.
So, and then of course, and then with Yanni to be seen in the media on this global stage.
Yes,
What
yes.
was what effect was that to you? And I guess, I would think that it has opened doors that hadn't been even approached.
Yes, absolutely. It was life changing. I mean, it was literally overnight. I can tell you stories. And when I realized the impact of the release of that Live at the Acropolis video with Yanni, I mean,
Please share. Please share.
okay.
Please.
So this was we recorded it in 1991. I auditioned for him, I believe it was in 1991. And
Yes.
so no, 1990. And then 91, I believe, is when, no, I'm wrong. I think it was after that, maybe 92 even, or three. So we had this huge earthquake, right? The Northridge earthquake. I was in Sherman Oaks at the time.
I was
Oh
I was in Van Nuys.
You were ever, oh, then you watched right with me. Okay. So,
Maybe it was rocking and rolling.
okay. I was like, okay, I had never experienced anything like that. It was straight out of a Hollywood disaster movie. I was just like, okay. And I was by myself. That was the first time I'd ever lived alone. And it was the first night that I just masked up the courage to just sleep in my bedroom.
And by the way,
yes.
that was tomorrow is the anniversary of that.
Is it? That's right.
It was the 17th of January.
4:31 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Yes. It was yeah, that was massive. And I slept in my bedroom for the first time that night. I'd come back from playing a salsa gig. And I got home and what I would traditionally do, since I had never lived alone before, was I would stay up all night on the computer and go to bed when the sun came up, and, get up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, have bacon and eggs and a croissant or something, and then just start my day over again. That was, of course, before I had children. And this night I went in that room and I slept, and at 4:31, it was like this huge jolt, and then it shook. Then the globe fell off the ceiling and hit me in the head, and it just felt like a freight train was going past at high speed. And
exactly.
It was completely black outside. And that was life-changing for me. I mean, I still have PTSD behind that event. And so, Yanni calls me up. We're having aftershocks at this point. And I'm thinking, I'm leaving California. I'm going back to the East Coast because I can't deal with this. This is like, it's rattling my nerves. On my stress levels are like level 10, 24/7. And then he said, Karen, please don't leave. He said, because something really big is going to happen. And it's going to happen. And I was like, yeah.
You mean bigger than this earthquake?
Right,
yes.
Right. I told him that. And I was like, he's like, don't, you won't even be here. He said, I promise you. And I was just like, okay. And I was like, yeah, right. In the back of my head. How many times do you hear that in show business? You know, oh, this is going to be your big break. So, you know, later on that year, they put the Live at the Acropolis video on PBS. And it was like overnight, the phone started ringing off the hook. All these people I had talked to for these few years I had been in LA, you know, the vast majority of them never called me back about work. And then all of a sudden, everybody was calling. It was so bad to the point where I called the operator to change my phone number, because that's how you did it back then with landlines. I got on the phone with her and she's asking me, you know, okay, so what's the reason why you're, I'm like, my phone's just ringing all night. I don't know, you know, I can't leave it unplugged because we're still having aftershocks. I'm telling her all this. And then she asked me my name, and I told her my name. She said, this is the operator. Are you that violinist that was on that PB? I was like, you saw that? You like, it was like that. And I'd be sitting at traffic lights and people would be blowing at me and doing this. And oh, it was amazing. It really, there was a guy that was at a mobile gas station, which was kind of like behind where I lived at the time. And I would walk back there and go get a cup of coffee at 3:00 in the afternoon. And, you know, and sometimes I'd bring my little car, I had a little Honda then, and I would tell him, you know, I think my oil needs to be checking. This guy was from another part of the world, you know, and he would just yell at me. He was so, the way he talked to me was, the tone was so rude, and like he was always impatient. Why are you always needing your oil checked? And, you know, your car is just fine, you know, but he'd check it anyway after all that, right? So after that video came out, I came there like I normally do. He was on, I don't know what you call those boards when you're fixing the car and it rolls underneath. It has
yes.
Yes. So he was under there, and you know, I looked like a dog because I just fell out of bed, right? And so he saw my feet go past him. He unrolled from out of the car. It's just broad daylight, Van Nuys. And it's like a whole 360. He's like, it is you. And he got on his knees on the ground and he kept doing this. And I was so embarrassed. I was like, sir, I mean, he had never, ever been that way towards me before until that came. And I said, sir, will you please get up off the ground? Because everybody was looking at him like, why is he, you know, it was, these experiences let me know, okay, something big is happening here. And eventually I did go on tour for a long time. I stayed with Yanni almost exclusively for like 13 years. About 13 years I stayed with him. Now, I know people have been on Ms. Ross's gig longer than that, but that felt like a long time to me. And, you know, and then that led to everything else that happened. Playing with Stanley came from that. Playing with Ms. Ross came from that. Playing with Nasir came from that. Everything I'm doing today was because of that exposure, because up until then, I was just kind of an obscure local musician, and I was playing gigs with bands. Munyongo Jackson, percussionist. The day I got married, after we got married, we went to see Miles Davis. That's the first time I saw him. And then the first salsa gig that I did in LA, oh God, what was the name of that club? I can't remember the name of that club that we played in Venice, but that was an era in and of itself. And the first day I got there, Munyongo walked up to me and he's like, hi, my name is Munyongo. I'm coming from New York, you know, where at that time you're young and you're halfway attractive, you know, you just get harassed on the street. And I just had this mindset. And so when he said that, I was like, yeah, and then just went back to whatever I was doing. I was just trying to set up. He's like, what's your name? And I looked at him again, Karen. Then went back to what I was doing. I was just like, you know, I wasn't very the most friendly to him at first, because he kept asking, and he was persistent, kept asking questions. So you play violin? And I'm looking, the violin's right there, like, dumb question. He's like, are you good? I said, well, I'll let you be.
Are you good?
He asked me that. I was like, well, I'll let you be the judge of that. That's what I said. And I didn't think I was good at the time. And this was a whole new genre of music for me that I'd never played before. And the place was called, I think, was it called Miami Spice? I think
Could have been.
Yeah, I think that's what it might have been called. Yeah, so I played, and I didn't think I played that good, but he was impressed enough with my playing that at that time, when not everybody had a studio in their home, he had one. And he just called me up one day. He said, you know, I have a studio here at my house, and I have some tunes. And if you have some tunes, you're welcome to come over here, and we can just, play some stuff. And that's what we did. And then whenever he did have shows of his own, he would call me and pretty much introduce me to the LA music scene, just behind, inviting me to do gigs with him, like the African Marketplace and stuff that he was doing there on his own.
Was it Manyongo who introduced you to Patrice Rushen, or as I remember, they lived not too far from each other, and in Dugu
Yes, Google was real
new.
close by. Yes.
Yes.
I would like to say that it had to be connected somehow, because I knew no one when I came there. So, he was the first person I met, and he knew so many musicians. He was calling me for gigs and rehearsals locally, and somehow it had to branch out to her. And of course, she is like my shero. We grew up listening to her, and even though she was being played on the R&B stations, I recognized that she could really, really play, and improvise, and and she had a very progressive sound. And so, she had to come, because all of my energy was like wanting to meet Patrice Rushen. And once I did, I guess she must have heard me play. I'm not even sure, because it was so long ago, where she may have heard me play. But after a while, she started calling me for stuff. And one of the major gigs she called me for was when the UK-based group called Soul to Soul. You know them.
Yes.
Yeah. They had the 3 dancing violins. When I saw that video, I was like, that's my gig. I should be doing that.
That's just hey, give me that. Give me that. That's
like,
me.
Okay. I did the whole salsa thing so I could move and play at the same time, because this is very awkward, I have to tell you. Those who are doing this for flute and this for saxophone, this for piano, this is some awkward stuff right here. So to move, to be able to carry steps with it, I learned that from playing salsa. And so I said, I'm already trained for this gig. I wonder if they could use a 4th player. I was in my head about it, but it was just a little fantasy. But Patrice ended up getting called when they got nominated for an NAACP award. And then they were also invited to play for Soul Train. And they didn't bring the whole band. So, they called local musicians, and Patrice called me. And that's how I got that tour, which that was in 1990. And we toured the United States, we toured Japan and Australia. For me, as a first time, major tour person, this was such a blessing. I was so happy. And there's a bunch of musicians that I'm still in contact with from that.
But that was an even different, that was a different audience than Yanni. That's all of a sudden Soul to Soul. It's like,
well, Yanni hadn't even happened yet. That was
that hadn't happened yet. Okay.
That was in 1990. I think, and I'm sure I got the years mixed up, but I auditioned for Yanni the following year. So that was 91 that I auditioned for him. And I think it was 93 that we shot the video in Greece.
So doors were just opening for you.
Yes, they were. And I think it had a lot to do with my focus at the time. I mean, oftentimes when we are backed into a corner, my marriage is falling apart, my mother is terminally ill, I'm out here by myself, the earthquakes are happening, my stress levels, beyond high. And oftentimes when you're backed into a corner like that, your focus, if you focus the right way, the things that you focus on, whether it's good or bad, they will materialize.
To say that what we focus on, since we are the projectors, what we project on is our reality, and also what you project, those choices, there are the consequences.
Yes, all of that. But see, I can't say I was this aware of that at the time. That's just what I did, because I don't know. I remember being at rehearsals and musicians would be talking about touring. I'm like, touring? Oh,
this touring thing.
And I didn't know what a tour was. I mean, as I said, I wasn't thinking like I was going to do this for a living until it got to a place, okay, you got to do something. And even then, I wasn't thinking, this is going to be my career choice. I just let that go. But when I heard them talking about touring, I was like, wow, that sounds interesting. I don't know what a tour is, but I want to do one. And again, the focus was there. I told everybody I knew, anybody who would listen, I want to go on tour. I want to go on tour. I want to go on tour. I told everybody. And so it had to come, you know, because I wouldn't leave it alone until it did. So Soul to Soul, I had done one tour that wasn't as, you know, commercially famous at all, with a pianist named Milcho Leviev. Milcho is from Bulgaria. And we put together a band that was myself, Tootie Heath, Nedra Wheeler on bass, and Milcho played piano. And we went to his country. And I always say that's the first time I really left America. I had been to Mexico, you know, I had been Canada, but this was
Bulgaria.
This was leaving the country, like for real. And we played 3 concerts there in Sofia with the National Orchestra. We played in Plovdiv, and there was another part of Bulgaria that we had played in. And it was so special to me. There was such a different change of scenery in Bulgaria at that time. And the wall had just come down, I think maybe just a year before. I saw a camp with gypsies with a bear on the chain. Like, I saw stuff that I only read about while I was there. And then the musicianship there was absolutely off the chain. You know, they love their odd time meters, very fast oftentimes. And I was just fascinated with what I saw there because it was just so different from what I knew here. Just like I said, just stuff you kind of read about maybe in fairy tale books, even, you know, Hansel and Gretel and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, here it is live. Like, wow. And, you know, he was wonderful. Milcho, he passed away in recent years, but he was wonderful that he even took me on for that. And Tootie Heath as well, another one, bless his soul, who was there. And we had a lot of fun, a lot of humor. Nedra and I were the youngest, of course, and the humor was flying all the time. We had this group, it was called Katumi. So the K-A was Karen, T-O-O was Tootie, and me was Milcho, Katumi. That was the band. And we did an album while we were there. So, you know, it was very special. But then the Soul to Soul came, and then after Soul to Soul came Yanni. I auditioned for that. Patrice called me about that audition. And it was at his house, Yanni's house, and his drummer was there at the time, Charlie Adams. And this dude put some music in front of me, like, looked like somebody like took this and just poured black pepper all over and said, here, read this. And I'm like, you want me to read this now? Like, you know?
Yes.
And he was like, yeah. And he had a video playing of an orchestral concert he had done, I think, in Colorado. And, you know, the music was like, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then these notes are flying by, and I'm trying to keep up with it, use my ears and eyes, and oh, it was flying by. But I caught it better by ear. I don't think he was going to hire me at first. But then when, you know, we stopped reading music and he just ran the video with the orchestra playing, that's where all the jazz and the ears and everything kicked in. Because I was like, well, I can improvise to this. And when he heard that, I was just noodling around, and he heard that, and that's what swayed his decision.
So gotta ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
With your foundation of playing jazz,
Yes,
it has served you so well. I'm just making this statement that it has obviously served you in these different grooves.
yes. Yes,
Would you was there, you know, in looking back in retrospect, what from the different grooves that you've performed,
mm-hmm.
which ones pushed you the most? Which ones were, you know, how do I get around this? How can I take this and make it my own? This is this is going on, but I'm going to add the Karen Briggs to it.
Yes. Well, that to me was just a mixture of things. You know, my grandfather, Frank Briggs Sr., was also the pastor of our family church. He also played trumpet. He played several instruments. I never saw him play violin, but he did play violin. But I did see him play keys, and I saw him play trumpet. He played sort of in that style of Louis Armstrong, but only in church. Only in church did he play. And it
In
was
church.
church, yes.
In church.
And it was a certain Sunday that he did it. And when he did, I was always excited to go to church to see my grandfather play. He was also my next door.
Beautiful.
He's also my next door neighbor. He and my grandmother lived right next door to us where we grew up in Virginia. It's Portsmouth, Virginia. And so that was just going to be there. They had 14 children. I am one of 67 grandchildren. My father is one of those children. So the music was kind of like there, like wallpaper. I don't even think I thought anybody lived any different than me when it came to that. And we had jam sessions at the house. He had other musicians that would come by the house and they would, have a drink and,
This was the norm. That was your norm.
That was my norm. Yes. And
wow.
So I didn't think much about it, but it was all sinking in. And then my brother, he really would bring the records home and I'd sit down and listen to him when we put together these like 10,000 piece puzzles, on Sundays, and that's what we would do. It. They play a lot of music. Don Sebesky's Giant Box comes to mind.
Don Sebesky. Ooh.
Oh, I love that album. I grew up on it. I'm showing it to my teenager now. And just the way he orchestrated those pieces, the Firebirds.
Incredible.
Yeah, all the incredible musicians that were. Grover was on there. I don't know. It was so many. I can't even name all of them because it was such an exciting project. But I grew up listening. But my brother would point out things in the mixes that I probably wouldn't have listened to had he not said it. Like little things in the mix, like maybe a triangle or a tambourine rhythm or a conga rhythm or something like that. And he called me Box. That was my nickname. He's like, Box, listen to that right there. You hear that? That's a triangle, And my brother was not a musician, but he knew stuff about music. And I would listen. I'm still like that to this day. I taught the same things to my daughter. It's very important, just to have your antennas up as often as possible.
Indeed.
I've never experienced complete silence. I mean, if you really listen, there is no such thing, not in this world that I've ever experienced. It probably can happen, but I think it would take a lot to dampen. You'd hear your own heartbeat. I mean, things.
If you listen.
Yes. So while that was going on, I'm soaking all of this in. So the way I ended up playing violin, once again, it was offered in the public school system. So I'm in elementary school system. This Black woman who runs the orchestra, that later became my teacher, her name is Gerry Hardy. She brought the orchestra to recruit students. And so here's what she brought. She brought a rhythm section with drums, bass, and keys. Her son played keys at the time. And she brought this light-skinned dude with a big afro, and she brought a string section. And she had upright bass and all that going on. And, she came there and they played stuff like, they played a little Beethoven, a little Mozart. And then they played spinners. They played Barry White, Love Unlimited orchestra, like Love's Theme and stuff like that. And so when they brought the dude up with the big afro, he sang, I'll never forget this. He sang, "It takes a fool to learn that love don't love nobody." And while he was singing, all the girls in the audience, little kids, he was screaming, and you would thought it was Michael Jackson there. That's how they treated it. And I was just looking at them. I said, "Oh, this is so cute." It's like, and so she's like, so all you have to do is sign up, for the orchestra. And what will happen is you'll take it in summer school. And once you get into the regular semester, you'll be placed in the advanced orchestra. And she said, the advanced orchestra is going to New York that year. And I said, okay, that's interesting. So when we went to choose our electives, because I'm going into middle school, junior high school now, I chose home economics. I came home with my mother. I said, "Mommy, we can choose our own classes now." She's like, "What did you choose?" I said, "Home economics." She said, "Choose something else." Oh, okay. So I went back and I thought about that offer with the orchestra. I said, well, maybe I could play good enough to make the trip. So I joined. I took it in summer school, then got to the regular semester class, the advanced class. And then we had to play for chairs. And I got first chair right away. And I remember a bunch of girls wanted to beat me up for that. And this is how cool this teacher was. Because these girls were threatening me, I started walking to school. It was about a 2-mile walk one way. And I would walk to school, and she would see me walking to school, and she stopped one day. Why are you walking to school? I said, I just need the exercise. I was not a snitch. And she saw me too many days in a row. And she said, get in the car. She said, is someone threatening to beat you up or something? I didn't say nothing, but she knew. And she knew who it was. She had a feeling. I guess, she'd been teaching long enough. Maybe she had seen this under these certain environments, things like this would happen. Oh, she told the whole orchestra that, let me hear about anybody putting their hands on you. She went there. And I was nervous even about that. But, once we got past that, I excelled at it and learned how to read. I had to learn all over again because of the break between summer and the class. And when we would do the repetitious kind of music, just trying to learn it, I always understood when something was not in tune. Not everybody understood that, but I understood that. And later they told me in college I had perfect pitch, but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I think I have really, really good relative pitch. I always remember what an A sounds like because that's what we tune to. That's it. You can test it on the piano later, but that's it. And I would pass those classes with flying colors because I had ears, which was really good for an instrument that has no frets. Violin has no frets. I don't see how anybody can play that instrument if they can't hear or remember with notes. And I'm not saying I play in tune all the time, but I know when I'm not, I'm aware. And a lot of kids around me, they just didn't seem to be aware of that. At least that's my summarization of it. Most of them, they just be playing these C sharps and they just be flat. And it was like they didn't notice, but I always noticed it. And I would always correct it when I heard it. And then once I got the vibrato going, it was on then. So we played these concerts. We did go to New York. I saw my sister because she was still living there at the time. And, I just continued to play after that. I enjoyed it. And then I started embellishing a lot of the music that we were playing, even the classical music. And she continued to bring she would bring like Ellington, she would bring other artists, music to the table along with the classical music. But I always found myself after repeating it a while, I would have to embellish something about the line. And I did that. So that was kind of the start of getting out of the box with the instrument. But I kept it a secret for a good little while until I got maybe junior in high school. My teacher says, I want you to run for the high school pageant and just play the violin. I said, okay. I did it. I'd do anything, she said. So she was like a second mom. So I ran, I got the gown and all that, and I ran. And I played Amazing Grace. And I played it like Aretha would sing it. That was where I went with that. I didn't just play it straight. All the embellishments were there. It's very soulful. And when I did it for the audition, my teacher came up to me. She had never heard anything like that before. And she's like, you can't play like that. That's the first thing she said. She said, you cannot play like that. That's just not allowed. And she went there. And I was like, oh, okay. And because she said it, I probably would have never done. She could have stopped everything right there. And I wouldn't have gone any further with it because I just listened to everything she said. She came back about 10 minutes later. And I guess she processed it. And she said, you know what? Forget that I said that. Just play it however you feel it. And so I did.
What a blessing. Good on her.
Yeah. I'm glad she script the flip is what she did. And and her son, I believe her son played for me for that too. And so I didn't win it, but I was first runner up for that pageant. And all of that was very validating. I was really glad that she changed over about it. And so I just continued to pursue it. And, I learned as far as I could with her, but she followed me through my entire life. Even when I had my first child, she passed away when I was pregnant with my first child. When I told her I was having a baby, the last thing she said to me, she's like, well, whatever you do, don't you stop playing that violin. That's what she said. And I said, okay. And I didn't. I never thought I'd be playing violin for this long. If you had asked me this maybe, I'd say 40 years ago or less, 35 years ago, I would have said no. even when I was in LA, I just at first I didn't think I would be doing this, and it just kind of evolved over time because I kept getting called for jobs, and the tours were great, and the musicians. I loved being around musicians and feeling respected by musicians and learning from musicians and hopefully inspiring others in the, at the same time. I wanted other people to feel that, if they had such a dream that was so feared by their most supported loves in life, that they could dismiss that and push forward and do what they really want to do. And if I had understood that earlier, I'm sure things would be even better than the greatness that they are, just because it took me longer, to see a lot of things. But once I saw it, I mean, I would never thought I'd be touring with Diana Ross. I think even at one of those rehearsals with Minyongo, Mark Stevens, one of her keyboardists,
Yes.
he was telling me then that he was with Diana Ross. I was like, wow. I wonder how good do you have to be to do that? Because he's really good. He could really play. And I just couldn't see myself in the same light as him. It was hard because there weren't a lot of people around doing what I was doing. If they were playing violin, they were doing it in the most traditional way possible and fitting in and aligning themselves with the whole uniformity of the orchestra and all of that. And I was like, okay, that was, I don't know. I just had more to say than that. And I wanted to say it and be heard. And it finally happened with this Acropolis video. It really did.
We'd like to thank Karen Briggs for this incredible information. Yeah, it's quite remarkable, her story. And yet, this is only the end of episode number 1. So you'll have to come back for episode number 2 because groove don't lie. Until the next episode, everybody keep that groove alive.